Thanks so much for joining us for Impact State of Mind. My name is John Paul Parmigiani. I'm co-founder and CEO of Impact Hub Newark Metropolitan area. So thanks very much for joining for today's session, which is Global Markets, Belgrade, Serbia. We are incredibly honored today to have with us Nenad Moslavac, who is the co-founder and CEO of Impact Hub Belgrade and general partner of Studio X Ventures. Nenad, so great to have you on today. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hi everyone, and thank you for inviting me to this session. I'm really looking forward to it.
Awesome. So I was hoping you could maybe kick us off and kind of give us an overview of the startup ecosystem in Serbia.
For most of people who don't know where Serbia is, and this is very often the case as we had experienced in real time and in physical times. We are a very small country. We like to think of ourselves as a potential alternative market to the global solutions that we are building around our network. The ecosystem, obviously, in such an alternative space in which we are, it's very small, it's very emerging, but still very energizing. Being small sometimes allows you to test and pilot different things and maybe to be faster in certain circumstances like the one in which we are right now.
What industries are people working the most in?
Okay, so to continue further then on the ecosystem itself, Serbia is well known for its talent. It is, like I said, a country of small numbers but high talents, and this is something that then creates different industries which are proven to be very interesting in this right momentum which we are in. There's a lot of build-ups of startup companies in the field of online collaboration tools, which are very useful now at this stage. Also, there's a decent food tech, ag tech solutions that we've been working with. We are also very much known for some of the known gaming industries, which is again in the field of digital media, a tool that is being increasingly watched for. Yeah, and I would say those are kind of like the three main fields. There are others as well. Certainly, the gaming is we're most famous for. But I would say that others are very opportunistic as well. When you look at the potential of these industries, they are very opportunistic in sense of providing solutions for the circumstances in which we are in now, as most of these industries are not directly related to the physical interactions. Obviously, the world as we knew, it's changing and it's bringing some hybrid future models of collaboration and exchanges. And I think that these industries in particular will be the ones that will help us to build our new connectivity, in which we are so much in need at this moment.
From what I understand, Belgrade is a great place to prototype for the European market when it comes to technology companies. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
And I would say in particular at the Impact Hub and even more at the Studio X Ventures, which you mentioned in the beginning that I'm presenting here, we really believe in what we like to call the new era or the next era of venture businesses. And this is something that will be actually responding to this massive societal changes that are in front of us. So obviously, European markets are right here in front of us, and for Serbia being surrounded with the potential larger markets such as the German market or the other markets around here, it's an opportunity. But I would say that in our experience in particular, we are looking more into that leap that Serbia needs to make to actually speed up the number of years that we lost in the previous period. We are not the Czech Republic, we are not Estonia, we are not these countries that maybe fellows in New York may know of because they made their presence and their signature in the startup world as of that we know today. But what we can do is actually, build and prototype your product or service locally, test it in the regional market, and then as such, try to win the large global market or the solution that you're trying to provide. So when we think of these high value solutions, which are required, certainly Serbia is not the place to take the data from and analysis, but this is where the actual European market becomes very handy, because then the Serbian startup founders can actually get their numbers, get their first customers or high-end customers, and based on that, create the value proposition for potential investment for the global market.
Got it. So what are some examples, what are some good examples of, Serbian social impact oriented enterprises that have been able to capture the local market and grow beyond the bounds?
Well, maybe not to go into specific names. I would say, certainly there is a number of companies that were acquired before this period by other larger companies in meaningful numbers. These are usually cloud solutions, SaaS solutions. When we talk about the societal impact, I think that the biggest impact that at least we are working here is really on the gender diverse startup teams. So it's not really about the product itself. It's not about the service that the company is providing. It's actually about the team and the diversity of the team that brings to actually creating solution. When you think of a problem that we're trying to solve in here, obviously, there's a lot of statistics showing us that most of the VC world, it's a man-led world, and only single percentages of women-led startups actually get VC funding, whereas it's a half and half world in real world, right? And that way, what we are trying to demonstrate to say is that, if we take gender diverse teams, we have two angles of actually understanding the problem and communicating what is the best solution to that problem. And this is maybe the largest impact that I can think of that Serbian startups with which we are working here at the IMPA Belgrade are known for. From the industries itself, like I said, I would say maybe we find the combination of food tech and ag tech as a potential perspective. Serbia is known for its agriculture. Agriculture is certainly a field that will be needing to change, and it's changing very quickly as we speak. From one side, because there's a lot of pressure, global pressure of the necessary changes that we need to change our behaviors as consumers, right, of food. And most of this is impacted by the climate change, which we are experienced. Every summer is kind of getting worse and worse, and every winter is getting worse and worse. So in that sense, I think that Serbian potential beyond of providing some decent base of agricultural products is combining with that IT talent that Serbia has. It's the second exporting industry in Serbia, and this is why we think that solutions that are focused on these two things, actually on these two sectors, can be very, very promising. Maybe to add also, I would say in the digital media sphere, this is something that's now obviously being very much watched, because it's a sector where you can make a meaningful change, creating tools that can actually put people together and help people to communicate and to bring their work of whatever it is faster. This is a rapidly increasing field of solutions that are being tested and proposed, and this is something that also here at the IMPA Hub we are working with and trying to find the best solutions forward for these kind of industries as well.
Now, I know you're wearing several hats, and so I was wondering if maybe you could tell the audience a little bit about your work.
IMPA Hub Belgrade was kind of founded around the same time as the one in New York and the one in Berlin. So we are the so-called the second generation of IMPA Hubs in the network, which really helped us to kind of like set up the position in the local market here. as we understood and learned from a lot of successes and failures that some other impact hubs in our family had. In positioning ourselves in the market here, we try to identify what is the biggest problem that we want to solve to bring the impact forward. And this has been certainly the quality of the teams of founders that we can bring to the better investment readiness that they need to be in. So as a CEO and founder of Impact Hub, my main role at Impact Hub is really to kind of like try to put on the right path the team and the companies that come in, to look at them as sort of kind of like the potential talent that we can work in at the Impact Hub and bring forward to the rest of the markets. The second hat that's recently, a year ago, both my co-founder and partner Gaia and I started in US. It's called Studio X Ventures. It's basically a venture builder. What we realized in working with startup companies here in the small market in which we are, is that most of these teams are not really ready for the big markets, as they don't understand the size. Even if you do the greatest desk research about the problem you want to solve, once you really realize how big the problem is, you realize it's actually, it's a big bite. So in that sense, as a Studio X Ventures, we designed the venture builder that can actually help to bridge that gap that most of the startup companies from the region of Western Balkans in general, so not only Serbia, are faced with in trying to reach and conquer the global markets. Why we're doing that? It's really for the sustainability of our work here, and also our youth that we are, that's really, Serbia is famous for the brain drain, right? So a lot of people are leaving. Why are they leaving? Because there's no opportunities for them to grow here. So in that sense, with this kind of approach, what we are trying to tackle is also the brain drain. Because in the new in the 21st century, with all these tools that we mentioned earlier, it really doesn't matter where you're at. You can actually create great solutions for the greatest world problems being at your home. And it's very likely that in the next 5 or 10 years, your home will become your center of universe, of your work, of your lifestyle, where you will bring together all your tools that you need to have to solve the problems. So in that sense, we hope that Studio X Ventures, it's a brand new venture builder. It's just starting. It's still building its portfolio, but we hope that in the year or so in front of us, we see the strengthening pillars of this bridge, and bridging the gap actually between what we have here and what is out there in the rest of the world.
So speaking of working from home, obviously with COVID-19, a lot has been changing, and no one really knows where a lot of this will be going in terms of how people will interact with whatever the future of work may look like at this point. I was wondering if you could give us maybe some insight to how people and innovators in Serbia have been dealing with the COVID-19 crisis.
I'll be very direct in answering this question. I'm not sure if Serbia is the best example in this, to be quite frank. We kind of have the statistics that are showing us that the whole situation was handled well, but actually it goes aligned with other statistics of other autocratic governments that are around us, and that actually proven to be handling much better the situation than some more democratic governments. So in that sense, I think that people here are still not aware of the change that has been made. The world is moving very fast. Being in a small economy, such as the one in the Western Balkans, we tend not to believe until it happens on one side. And on the other side is also we tend to depend on the bigger economies, very often not even being aware of that. What we did at the Impact Hub is that we moved right away all our activities online. So all our acceleration programming, work with startups, work with investors, everything was moved right away online when the first cases started to show here, the first COVID cases in Serbia. It's early March, right? And then since we behaved so well in our country, so they let us go, after all the lockdowns, all these things. we actually didn't rest. So what we did at the Impa Hub, which is the space, it's kind of like a gathering space, a co-working space, an event space. We introduced some measures that actually, I believe they're necessary. Other people may not believe they're necessary, but certainly they're a good example of social behavior, which will become, if it did not become already, a very normal, and it's here to stay with us. So instead of having a table for 4, we have table now for 1 or 2 people. Instead of having an event space for 100 plus people, we don't do more than 20, 30 people, respecting social distancing, with all the disinfections things, the entrancing, and mask wearing and offering, these kind of things. On one side, it's very visually kind of like showing, hey, we care, and we want everyone to care and to kind of like take this as continuing forward with this. There isn't really a need for many things that we do that we need to physically be next to each other. And don't get me wrong, I mean, people are human beings. We do things together. We created the world together, so we have to be together. But I think that we, especially in our economy here, we tend to forget how much we can do also digitally. And this was kind of like the driving force and energy for us at the Impa Hub. What can we do virtually that can really help us to speed up and to be faster in the message we want to deliver? And I have to say, we learned a lot from being a part of the global network in which we both are, right? I mean, we've been using Zoom since 2013 in our case, when we founded Impa Hub. I never heard of Zoom before that. For many people, it was the first time introduction to a digital tool instead of like Skype or some other tool that people are using. We've been working virtually in the last year or so, building the audio files, video files, targeting teams that are not physically in the space or possible to join our educational part of the hub that we work with through the acceleration, right? Why? Because, you can't go for every meeting from Serbia to New York, right? From Belgrade to New York. It's impossible. I mean, it will have to happen online. You will have to present your business idea online. And the new kind of like situation which we are in, which may not be anymore that new, is actually just helping us to speed up this training of how can we be better in presenting of who we are, what we want to achieve, instead of spending all the time and money, travels, polluting, lessening a footprint at the end, and still making the same message.
If you could maybe tell us how innovators in New York of various kinds can connect in, since you are virtual. How can people connect to your work?
So I always like to say, anyone who's interested to learn anything more, you guys can just ping me on LinkedIn, Nenad Moslavac, LinkedIn, or just write an email or reach out through you, JP, as well. More than happy. We are all very open to connecting to any kind of ideas and trying to work together. The best way to connect certainly is online, because it wouldn't be even possible otherwise, even if there wasn't for the C19 situation, because we are in such a distance as we are. But eventually we will be arriving to New York, and we will be arriving to US pending when the circumstances happen. At this moment, we have this so-called inspirational booking. The first booking was for the July 15th, but we had to cancel it. Now we moved it to August, so we keep moving it from month to month. But I certainly hope that the first physical opportunity there is, it will be useful for connecting in person. In the meantime, I would like to say that one of the potential opportunities that we have is what we recently created in our work, so-called cluster meetings. So we organize regular meetups. We like to invite everyone who's interested to join the meetup as a guest and meet our community of entrepreneurs, meet our clusters of industries which we are working in, exchange ideas, exchange potential opportunities, perhaps, I don't know, and help us to facilitate the interaction online.
Can you give us a sense of the startups and entrepreneurs in your community?
We have startups, like I mentioned, from the ag tech, trying to solve the issues and challenges in the management of vineyards. We have the logistic handling systems kind of startups where they're trying to combine the different solutions mainly for logistical purposes. Lots of startups, few startups, I would say, from building collaboration tools and gaming development tools. Then cybersecurity, education, smart city, food, fintech, collaboration online. Yeah, you name it.
I know that you are often you're actually one of those people who does come to New York, which is why it's so great to have you on. And you've had many events in New York that help people to experience different innovations, particularly in the food sector. You've had a lot of really interesting events there. What are some of the leading organizations in New York that deal with the diaspora of Serbia, that's people who are interested in learning more about Serbia in New York can do so?
So, certainly there is this informal group of Serbian entrepreneurs. They're present in New York and in San Francisco, and a couple other cities throughout the US. It's a group of successful Serbian entrepreneurs, as the name says, that gather together and are probably the very good step in kind of understanding better the community of successful Serbian entrepreneurs who are out there. In regards to the specific companies, I'm not sure really, I wouldn't be able to name in particular the one. We work a lot with individuals, and at the end, it's very important of, what are your values as individual that you bring on the table? So in that sense, I would say that people who are interested in connecting, for sure, just for the out of curiosity to learn more about what we have here and how can maybe some of the solutions here go beyond the actual outsourcing, and combining with the experience and the know-how in the US, bring maybe a new innovation for the global problems that we're all trying to solve. We are collaborating and inviting people who want to be mentors. So, peer-to-peer learning is something that we very much enhance and encourage here to work. People learn best from their own peers. So in building the startups, I would say that certainly, if you are a startup founder and you have your experience to share with a fellow startup founder, we would be definitely a place to go. We are planning now, we just are now launched the beta phase, and by September we hope to launch the full operational actional phase of something that we call 360 Degrees Connect. It's basically a platform for the Western Balkan countries that we want to use for all people who are interested to be in one place and to interconnect with each other. And at the end, obviously, if you are a potential business angel investor and you would like to join in building ventures from this region, certainly Studio X Ventures would be the go-to place for that. And we could discuss the potential collaboration of how can we bring the startup solutions faster and better to the global markets, such as the US and New York.
I just want to get back really quickly to a topic that you brought up earlier regarding diversity. You mentioned that you were all focusing on diversity of teams and making sure that women are represented as well in some of these initiatives. Can you tell us how that came up as a topic? What deliberate measures has been taken to increase the diversity within the ecosystem there?
So probably my co-founder partner guy would be better to talk about it because she's a woman, right? But I would say that because we are in a founding team itself different, right? We were able to to attract different founders from that point. Certainly, the diversity, not only gender diversity, but in general, the diversity is something that's a value, I think, that brings so much better off for all of us around the world, and in particular, here as well. So it happened that, we started to tackle problems and with startup founders, and we found that the women founders had different kind of problems, or at least they were presenting different kind of problems when they were faced in front of the investors, which are usually men, and when they were actually talking to their fellow women. In trying to understand that challenge, we built the large community of women founders. At one point, we had every month meetups, physical meetups at the time, with more than 100 women in room, trying to understand better, how do they solve this problem in their business? How do they solve this communication with their business partner? And so on and so on. Many of these things come from the gender roles that women and men take by default and by their cultural heritage, I would say. Many of these are just kind of like, imposed by the, Western society values in which we are. But they're not in there, they can be changed. And what we learned is actually trying to have the right answer for the right question. What we, very often in discussion between, let's say, a man investor and a woman founder would go in a different direction, and they would not talk about the same things, as they would not understand each other. And this is where, in building the community of women investors, women business angels, together with the community of women founders, it's really helpful. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't think that we should have all men team startups or all women startups, right? The best teams are those that are mixed. And this is where the gender diversity actually comes to its best.
So I want to be cognizant of time. We're basically on our last minute. What advice would you give to an innovator that's based in New York who is interested in testing the market and making a pivot to do business in Serbia?
My advice would be courageous. Don't think of Serbia and other alternative markets just as an outsourced market. There's some great talent out here. There's some great values. And being small sometimes helps you to be faster in bringing your product or solution to the life of the global market.
So thanks so much for everyone for joining us. Thanks for the audience, and then also to you. Thank you so much for sharing your perspective.
Thank you so much for inviting me, and yeah, stay in touch.